we're going to be working together for the next 3 months, I think it is. I'll tell you a bit more about the program as we get stuck into it. But yeah, I just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm hosting the program along with Susan. So Susan, do you want to say a bit about you?
Well, thanks, Kate. Yeah, I know a few of you as well, and some I don't. So it's lovely to see some new faces. Yes. So I think that I am on the side of this experiment that has really embraced and I feel really comfortable with this technology. I think that I've been able to kind of manipulate it and learn how to work with it to get super great results, and been able to build brilliant relationships and actually brilliant teams using this technology. So I'm super excited at the opportunity to kind of take the pedagogy and the learning from the Building Brilliant Teams curriculum and what we know about how it works to actually create great teams in person, but also to give everybody here the confidence to start to use tools like Zoom and Slack when you can't always be face-to-face with your colleagues and with your team. So that for me just feels like a real double bonus from this experiment and this iteration and variation of the program. So really thrilled to be here. You know, I feel like I'm with you in Western Australia, even though I'm in New Zealand. And yeah, just really excited to get started. So I just want to make sure that everybody is feeling comfortable with Zoom. So again, I think, Matt, just to be sure that you've clicked gallery view in the top right corner. I can't hear you. So that's also potentially an issue. Sometimes with Zoom, it doesn't, it gets confused with headphones. I'm wondering if you could just unplug your headphones and see if we can hear you if you have your headphones out. Talk to us now.
Hello?
Yeah, so we can hear you now. So sometimes it gets like that, but if you're not in a room where you're getting disturbed and it doesn't matter, then try it that way. But then again, sometime you'll log in and the headphones will work perfectly. Technology isn't perfect. Also, just to let you know that the chat at the bottom in the speech bubble is something that we can use as a back channel to also kind of react in the moment when we're hearing things, and it's just quite nice to have that up in the corner for yourself to maybe make notes for yourself or ask questions or surface reflections. I am recording these sessions, and just to make it clear for you, we're recording these sessions so that we can post them on our private YouTube channel, which I'll then post on Slack so that we can rewatch any of these sessions that we have, which may or may not come in useful for you depending on what we're doing the day. And again, I think that's another really awesome benefit of doing virtual programs like this. Anybody have any questions right now on Zoom, on operating anything?
Christy has sent a message to say you sound like a robot.
Do I still sound like a robot? You sound.
I think that was for Matt.
Okay.
Oh, was it for Matt? Okay, right.
Okay.
Oh, well, let us know. I'm not sure if you can
Nothing
hear that.
strange. That always sound like a robot.
Yeah, no, Christy, we still can't hear you. Okay.
All of us sound like robots, she's saying.
Well, we don't sound like robots to each other, so I'm not sure what we can do. Maybe it might be worthwhile you leaving the room and coming back. That sometimes solves the problems.
Logging out and coming back in.
Great, thank you. Cool, back to you, Kate.
Okay, Susan, just briefly, you mentioned Slack. So I think you asked the group that was on earlier if everybody had got an email from Susan inviting you to a Slack channel called Building Brilliant Teams. So it doesn't matter if you haven't had a chance to check your emails yet, but you should have an email that says, welcome to, or come and join this Slack channel. Shall we talk a little bit about Slack now, Susan?
Yeah, I think why not? So can I just get, who has used Slack before? Just put your hand up. Okay, great. I'm excited that it's a new technology for most of you. So another really great thing about Zoom is that I can share my screen, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to, where is the, I just need to make sure that I'm sharing the right thing. Hold on. Give me a second, please. Okay. So I've just invited you, Grace, you can see here. So this is Slack. This is a free technology that I guess replaces Messenger, but it also allows us to have channels or themes for our conversations. So once you get logged in, this is basically what you'll see. We will post just general information to the general channel here. As you can see, I've put a message in here already saying, hi everyone, head on over to the introductions channel to introduce yourself. So basically all you need to do here is click on this thing called introductions, and it will take you to the introductions channel. I've done my introduction here, so it would be great if over the next couple of days you could get into Slack and introduce yourself. Another way to see what channels are available, so I think that most of you probably are only seeing general and random in your channels now, but when you get to introductions, it will ask you if you want to join this channel, and I would say, yeah, please join the channel. Over the course of the course, we'll be adding various channels here around some of the themes. We'll probably have a channel called topical content, or what are you reading? Anybody that's in the channel could start a thread for a conversation if one of you maybe were particularly interested in a topic around, I don't know, art at work. You could start a channel called Art at Work and post messages there. You can also do direct messaging. So you can see here everybody that's joined the Slack group so far. So you can also direct message. So let's say, for example, I wanted to direct message Chris. I just click here to Chris and I say, hello, my friend, hope you are well. And then that just goes between Christine and me. You can see here that I think that I have my picture here. It'd be really great to see all of your pictures. So what you can do is when you get into Zoom, to Slack, you could go to click on the little wheel and edit your profile. And through editing your profile, you can add a photo here. You can give a little bio as well. So it'd be really great if over the next couple of days you could do those two things. You could edit your profile and pop your beautiful face there. And if you could introduce yourself into the introductions channel. I'll also, actually, right now while I'm doing it, I will add a channel called Tech Support. I'm going to just click down here where it says Create Channel. And so if anybody, and I'll invite you here now. I'm not sure if I can invite everybody at the same time, so maybe I won't do that. But if you click on channels, you'll be able to see that there's a tech support channel, and you can ask me any questions anytime. Tech support not only on Slack, but Zoom or whatever else might be relevant. I know, sorry, I know
hi, Christy.
It feels, hi, Christy. I know it feels it must feel a bit like drinking from the fire hose with the new app. But does anybody have anything going, yet? No? All good?
One of the things just to mention that we're learning is that the Slack channel, that it seems to have more traction and has more use if people have it on their phone. So you can get the app from the App Store, download it there. But that's definitely one of the things that we're learning, that if it's on people's phone, there's a greater chance of its use, but that's entirely up to you.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. So shall we do a check-in? Find out who's here. Yeah?
Let's do that. So one of the practices in great teams is that I've certainly found is checking in. So just even as a break, as you're running from meeting to meeting, or when we're coming together every couple of weeks, to just kind of make sure that we're here. And sometimes check-ins will have a prompt or a particular question. Sometimes it will just be everybody taking turns to say, yep, I'm Susan. I had a really good night's sleep. I'm feeling awesome today. And I hope that we get what we need for this from this session, for example. Could be an example of a general check-in. But today, since it's our first time together, I thought we might do a little bit of a round of introductions in addition to the intro that you're going to post on your Slack. So question is just say your name, what organization you're from, and what you're hoping to get out of this experience. So I'm happy to start. I'm Susan. I'm here on behalf of WACE, working with Kate on this really interesting program. And I'm hoping to learn about this particular curriculum, Building Brilliant Teams, to learn from all of you and to have a really rich experience of building a community virtually for the next 3 months and learning and developing together. And that's me. And so sometimes in check-ins, you can call on the next person, but let's just go a little bit more organically. And when you're ready to check in, just kind of raise your hand and I'll call on you. Christy.
Hello, everybody. I'm here. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I've had a lot of trouble today. Yep. I'm wanting to participate in building brilliant teams because as we grow as an organisation, our teams are becoming more remote from the organisation, and we're always trying to evolve our services so we can make sure everybody's getting the same content as people that are more connected to the organisation. So we're having the same messaging and making it easy for people to learn who may not be able to come into the office to do face-to-face training with us.
Thanks, Christy. Who's next? Carla.
Hi, I'm Carla. I'm from Inclusion WA. I'm here pretty much for the same reasons as Christy. Most of my staff work quite remotely, but we've also got quite a new lot of staff coming through. So I think it'd be really good just to be able to have something like this that we can implement for everybody. So, yeah.
Thanks, Carla. Who's next? Nathan.
Hi, Nathan. Work for Aviva as a service coordinator. Just here to just learn some new skills about how we can implement with us with our working locally teams that are coming up.
Awesome, Nathan. Thanks. Who's next? Emma, then Shanti, then Grace.
Hi, I'm Emma and I work for a disability agency called Enable in WA, Southwest. So pretty much the same as you guys. We're trying to have self-managed teams because they're out there, supporting people with disabilities in the community. So we don't get to see them as often, and like to be able to, so they can feel like they're connected with each other and us as a line manager.
Thanks, Emma. Shanti?
Hi, I'm Shanti. I'm from Accessibility in Perth, WA. I'm really looking forward to, communicating with peers because you can get a little bit isolated out in Narrogin, which is a little remote from Perth itself. Looking forward to learning new things and sharing it with the team, building the teams with the new era that we're moving into with NDIS.
Thanks, Shanti. Grace.
Hi, I'm Grace from Avivo. I've been hearing about building brilliant teams for a few years, so I'm keen to actually experience it. So that was firstly. And also the technology. I want to see how the technology works, how we can maintain engagement with using this technology. So I've two hats on for this, but I hope to learn a lot anyway. Thanks.
Thanks, Grace. Who's next? Kat.
Hello everyone, I'm Kat. I'm from GIFSA out in the Goldfields. I am Service Operations Manager and I'm new to the role. I've come from a coordinator role. In the operations area, we have some incredibly bold personalities, and I want to learn how I can get the best out of them working together.
That's great, Kat. Thanks. Who's next? Chris.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris. I work for Avivo as a service coordinator. I was lucky enough to participate in a Building Brilliance team workshop maybe 5 odd years ago. So I'm really looking forward to going through it again and learning a bit more about the material, but really how we can support teams out in the community. We've got some big changes happening in our organisation, so I'm really keen to learn how best we can support teams and some of the technology that can go along with that. A little bit like Grace.
Matt, it's you.
Just me left. My name's Matt from Inclusion WA. I'm part of a relatively new team with Inclusion WA. Really similar issues to, here to learn some similar things to what everybody else has already shared. Obviously, us being a new team, really important stage for us. A lot of our team are remote and do work remotely. So also trying to look at online options as well to try and keep in touch with everybody.
Okay, cool. As I said before, I'm Kate. I'm really looking forward to the programme, but I've definitely got some apprehension because it is via this kind of technology, and it's new to me really. So yeah, excited but a bit anxious at the same time. Okay, right. So what I've done is the way I've tried to structure. So like I say, this is normally actually there's two things to say. So one is this program is aimed at people who have a role to support and develop teams. So if I was doing this program with a team, there would be some different, I would approach it differently, but I'm assuming everybody that came on this course, and I think I'm getting a strong sense of that, everybody who came on it has a role in building teams, building and supporting teams. So I suppose the intention in the way that I've structured the material is it's almost like supporting you to then support a team. So I've made an assumption that over the next 3 months, you have a team in mind, maybe a few, that you can do some intentional work with. So the way that I've structured each session is we're going to pay attention to the areas that certainly I've learned and people who are way more knowledgeable and experienced than I am in team development that they've learned you need to pay attention to. And I've structured it in a way that that's the way I would really work with a team. So I would start in a particular position and then I would start to move through the material whilst trying to assess and figure out the team and where they're at. But that's the way that I've structured it. So there is some kind of logic to the process. And I suppose my my aim or my hope is that you come on these calls, we chew the fat about particular topics, think about particular techniques, and then between now and the next call, you get the chance to try that out. And then we come back together, what happened, how did that go, where's the team now, and then we learn a bit more and do it again. So that's the way I've structured it. I'm not going to check up on you to see if that's what you're doing, but that's the way it's structured. So you can then decide how you interact with it really. But yeah, my hope is that you've got a team in mind that you could do some intentional work with. So we're starting at the beginning, which is the teams that I've had in mind. So what are the teams? So let me just share my screen because I just want to show you something. If you've worked with me before, you'll know that I'm very visual. And there are some things that I just can't talk to or think about without having some kind of picture, right? But just to be really clear, that certainly my experience has been in human services. So I've worked in human services since I was 16. And when I'm talking and thinking about teams, largely they fall into these two categories. So it could be a team around an individual that we support and their family member. So a group of people whose focus or purpose is to provide support to the person and family in a way that makes sense to them and in a way that they have some direction in that. So there's an interesting, I suppose, factor in person-focused teams, because who the leader is, you would hope that would be the person. But what I've seen and learned is there's often some tension around that. But that's one of the constructs of teams. And then the other teams that I've used exactly the same program with is a service-focused team. So that is something like a bunch of coordinators who they themselves might have teams that they support, but they themselves are a team. And their kind of common purpose is to deliver a service. Or another example would be an advocacy team. You know, they're all doing their own work, but essentially they're a team. And the same program I've used with executive teams. So, yeah, I don't think it matters. I think the things that matter in what we need to pay attention to in teams matter no matter where you are in the team. You know, whether you're a person-focused team, an executive team, a service delivery team. So they're the teams that I'm talking about. So you may be working with person-focused or service. Actually, I'll ask that question. So what? Just give me a sense. Let me stop sharing that. Just give me a sense of, is it largely, when you're thinking about the teams that you're working with, is it largely a person-focused team, or is it a kind of service delivery team?
For me, it will be person-focused team.
This might be easier. Stick your hand up if it's largely person-focused teams that you're working with. Okay, if it's a service delivery team, okay, so we've got a kind of split, right? That's cool. Okay, then, so that's definitely, I suppose, that helps in terms of making sure that I'm pitching this in the right place. So, why is that not working? There we go. Right, okay then, so if they're the teams that we're going to be working with, one of the things that I'd just like us to have some conversation about is the research would say that if teams are dysfunctional and aren't working very well, research outside of human services, so I can't find anything inside human services, but research outside of human services, if a team's not working very well, the team members can spend up to 75% of their energy and effort on just navigating a team, right? So I suppose I'm curious about what that means in human services. So if a team's dysfunctional, and imagine a team, so my niece, our Jenny, has support, and she has a support team around her. So if that team's not working very well, up to 75% of their energy and effort is focused just on navigating each other. That leaves 25% for them to be focused on our Jenny. So it has a big impact, you know, team cohesion, team development, I think, has a really big impact. And what I've learned in human services is there seems to be a lot of focus on, from organizations, to kind of instruct or mold or guide team members to behave in a particular way, but I don't see loads of effort or investment in supporting the team to be a team. Okay, so I think it's really, really important. And what I've seen over the years is organizations seem to think that it's more important for senior managers than it is for direct support teams. So senior managers might go away for a team building day or a retreat or what have you. I would argue if we really want people's focus to be delivering good support, then you need to do some work and pay attention to teams. So I'm just going to stop there, and I wonder whether we have a go at going into the smaller rooms with a question really for everybody, which is, think about a time when you think you've worked in and been part of a really good team, and then think about a time when you've been part of a poor team or a team that has not worked very well. And I just want us to have some conversation about, what do you notice? What do you notice about the behaviours in a good team and about a poor team? What do you notice about the way that people are? So the behaviours, the way that people are, the way that people engage. Just think and think about yourself. What do you notice about your interaction with that team? When it was a good one, what were you like? When it was a poor one, what were you like? Is that okay? Is that pretty clear? Okay, so Susan, are you going to put us into groups?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this whiz-bang technology to put us into groups of 4. So I'm going to send you away into a group. There will be something that pops up on your screen that says join breakout, and press that. In about 10 minutes, I'm going to call you back into the room. Something will pop up on your screen to say rejoin main room. Room will be closing in 60 seconds. So just take that as an opportunity to wrap up your discussion. If you don't finish before the 60 seconds timer is up, you will automatically be brought back to the room. If you finish and wrap up the conversation earlier, just click the button and you'll come back to the room. It's pretty easy. All of this stuff, you do it 1 or 2 times and then you get used to it. So I'm just going to allocate you into your rooms. It'll take seconds. All right. See you soon.
Okay, welcome back. Okay, so anybody up for telling me a bit about where your conversation went? So you don't have to repeat the conversation, but where was there any kind of commonalities or big differences? Christy?
The commonality with our group would be things like clash of personalities, not having respectful relationships with your fellow colleagues, poor communication, values as well of the person. Anything else, guys, that were in my team? You can jump in right now.
Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. We spoke a lot around like communication being the key, and the longer you allow a team to work in a dysfunctional setting, the harder it gets to change the culture again. So we all shared a bit of a story around how we have been in a dysfunctional team and then looked to possibly change the culture around that as well. And Kristen shared a really great example as well around she had to do a lot of value-based recruitment in order to start aligning people from the very beginning of their journey.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And you were both in the same group? Okay, what about the other group? Oh, Christy? No? What about the other group? Who was in the other group? Kat?
Hello. Yeah, we chat a lot about building relationships and being able to, I guess, once those relationships are established, bounce off each other a little bit and see people's triggers as to when they get stressed. That when the team's dysfunctional, it's a lot more time consuming. More problems kind of arise and a lot more reactive. And about preparing people with information prior so that they've got some time to think think through before it's kind of delivered to them. And I guess in good teams functioning well, more ideas are delivered, and a lot more fun, a lot more productive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So I'm just going to share. So I think you are probably in line with probably one of the world's. Oh, hang on, I haven't shared my screen. Have I? Probably one of the world's, I think, best thinkers in relation to team development and team cohesion, and that's a guy called Patrick Lencioni. And he has an absolutely fabulous book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And the reason it's fabulous, just looking to see if it's over there. The reason it's fabulous is it's like a storybook, so it's like a novel. And he talks.
Sorry, can you put your screen back in slide view, please?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll try. There. So he talks, anyway, in his book, so I'll post that into the Slack channel if you want to have a look at that book. It would probably be a good one to read while we're doing this program. But he talks about what you'll see with great teams are some of these things. So people who are able to think for themselves and share their perspective and share their opinion and aren't frightened of sharing their opinion. People who absolutely understand what the result or the outcome is supposed to be. So I'm amazed that the amount of teams I've worked with, there's 2 really shocking things that for me I've noticed. One is that teams don't come together very often. So I'm a big believer in a team needs time to be a team. If they don't actually come together, now whether it's through a mechanism like Zoom or whether it is in person, I don't know how we expect people to behave like a team. So I'm always surprised when I discover teams don't come together very often. And then the other kind of big shocker is what people think success is. So I have a survey that I'm going to share with you that you can get a team to do that will give you then some analysis or some data to analyze. But one of the things that I'm amazed by is when you ask people, what do you think success would look like? You know, if you've achieved what you think this team's here to do, I'm always amazed at the vast difference in team members' opinions. So certainly Lencioni would say that a team has real clarity on what success is or what good looks like. I've already mentioned that teams are able to have some debates and discussions. So one of the things I'll look for when I'm starting to work with a team is, do they like going to team meetings? And often dysfunctional teams will cancel team meetings that don't happen very often. You know, it's kind of the last thing that they see as a priority. So people don't like them. They're not particularly productive. You know, there's kind of 2 or 3 people who talk in them. The rest of them are very quiet. So they're the kind of things I'm looking for to try to do some analysis on what's going on for this team. And then the other 2 are, you will see people who have the ability to hold each other to account. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute in terms of the leadership. And people who have a sense of connection. So we've been doing some work with a guy called Brian Ungard from an organization called Decurion. And the organization is really interesting, but he has wrote a piece called Operationalizing Love, which was a bit too much for me when I kind of first heard the title. However, again, we can put that in the Slack channel. It's worth looking at because this sense of having a responsibility for your colleagues and a sense of connection, I think is really significant, especially when you think about being in a good team. I think I can reflect on that and really feel that. I don't feel it in the bad teams that I've worked in. So just as before I go through these, right, have a think about the poor team that you had in your head and just do a bit of analysis yourself, right? So I'm going to go through them. And one of the things I'm doing right at the beginning when I start to work with a team is I'm trying to get a sense of what are the areas that this team needs to pay attention to, right? So one of the things that Patrick Lencioni says is he talks about the 5 dysfunctions. So this is a kind of analysis. You're going looking for this when you think about that team. So he talks about one of the major dysfunctions of teams when they're dysfunctional is that there's a lack of trust. So people don't trust each other. And there's quite a lot of evidence and research around psychological safety. So feeling safe to be who you are, and to talk and share how you see the world. You need to feel psychologically safe to do that. You need to know that if you do that, somebody isn't going to chop your head off or decide you shouldn't be in that job or sack you for sharing your perspectives, right? So the kind of things I'd look for in teams, so what I'd know, there's a lack of trust if I see some of these things, right? So if I see there are small cliques in a team, so there's kind of a couple of people who are allies, and there's a kind of group that's left out, they're the kind of indications to me that there's an issue about trust, right? The thing about cliques is really interesting, because if you think about yourself at work and the people that you've got more alignment with than others, we tend to go looking for people who are similar to ourselves. So you look for your own allies. So that's all that cliques are. It's people who found allies that they think are similar to them, that they keep closer than the rest of the team. So yeah, so that's one of the things I'd look for. The next thing that he talks about is fear of conflict. So people aren't able to have a robust conversation or disagree because they're frightened. So if you don't trust each other, there's a greater chance that you won't be able to enter into any kind of debate or disagreement because it's too unsafe to do so. So I look for things like, I ask people, what's your team meetings like? And if they say really boring, or really boring, the manager just comes in and talks at us about policies. That's a common answer that I've got in teams. That's one of the triggers that I'd be thinking there's something here about being able to have positive and healthy debate, right? The third one he talks about is a lack of commitment. So team members, and I love this one, right? Because I think you really see it in people's non-verbal communication. So people sitting in a team, the manager says, okay, so this is now what we're going to be doing. Everybody agree to that? And it's great when you're looking for it. People go, yeah. And everything about their non-verbals is saying, I'm not into this. And I used to smoke, and one of the advantages, so I don't know if anybody just smoked, but one of the advantages to smoking is I would be in a team meeting, we'd all sit there and go, yeah. And then I'd go outside with the smokers and we'd be like, what the hell are they talking about? As if we're going to do that. And so people kind of appear to commit, but they're not really committed. And when you have that, it makes it really difficult to hold each other to account. Because if you haven't really committed to something, it's then really difficult to say, you said you were going to do this and you didn't. So one of the things I really avoid in any kind of team settings is a kind of group action. So we're all going to do this. That is kind of asking for trouble, in my perspective. It's too difficult to see, are you really, so Chris, are you really committed to doing this particular action? If you are, then it makes it much easier for me to hold you to account as your colleague. Whereas when we have group actions, it's kind of neither now nor something. It's like, we're all going to do this. Well, Kate, I didn't actually say I was going to do it. You've told us that we were going to do it. So group actions can be a nightmare. And then the last one that Lencioni talks about is that people don't understand the results. So they're not focused on the results or the success or what good looks like, however, whatever terminology works for you. But he certainly says, if you don't know what good looks like, how can you possibly be working for yourself towards that and with other people? It's inevitable you're going to end up in different places if you haven't had some shared agreement on where we're going. So that's the kind of framework that we'll be spending the majority of the program looking at. So we'll take each one and do some kind of exploration around that and what you might do if trust is an issue. These might be some of the things that you try and do. If fear of conflict is an issue, these might be some of the things that you do. Does that make sense? So that's how the whole program's structured. One of the things, I was going to wait until the next week, but I wonder if I put it out now. So I have a survey that I give to teams. So imagine I'm coming to work with your team. And one of the things I ask the teams to do is to complete a survey. So it's an individual survey. I use SurveyMonkey. And I ask them to complete it individually. And then collectively, I get the information back. And that's the start, really, of me starting to do some analysis or some looking for things. So I'm looking for these points. You know, I'm looking for, is there an issue about trust here? You know, is there an issue about debate and conflict? So I'll put that survey out. So if you want to use it, you're more than welcome to use it with the team. What I'd say, and I'll come back to this at the end, but what I'd say is the team need to know that you are trying to do some intentional work with them. If you don't tell them, then you've kind of already started with breaking trust. So, but I'll come back to that. So that's the framework, right? So that's what I'm looking for. So that's the stuff that we're looking for. So I just want to move us, or does anybody have any questions about that? No. Okay. So I'm going to move us to the role that you might have in a team, because I do think it's really important. So I've worked in teams where I feel like the team have got to a point where they are fairly cohesive, they are building trust, and then the manager wanders in and can destroy that really quickly. And I've had many conversations with the manager to say, you might be part of the issue here in this team. So I suppose I'm putting this really up front so that you can have some, do some thinking about it, right? And I don't think I'm completely obsessed with PowerPoint, but I'm definitely obsessed with images, right? So that's why I've tried to pull this together. I'm not brilliant at imagery either on a computer, but anyway, you'll get the point, right? So if you imagine you've got the team members and you've got some kind of leader, manager, facilitator. So I'm assuming you're all in one of those categories, right? Because you're doing some kind of work with a team. One of the things that I've learned is the leader can put themselves in a really interesting position in teams, right? The most common one I've seen in human services is this one. So the leader's in the middle, and can you see my mouse? Yeah. So what happens, this is really, I suppose kind of bluntly putting it, what happens is this team member has got a problem with this team member, right? They don't like the way they do stuff. I don't know. Every time they support the person, the washing's not done, or the house is a shit tip, or whatever, right? So they've got a problem with this staff member. And what we've taught people to do, this is in fairly traditional organizations, is they talk to the leader and say, basically, will you tell him to stop doing that thing he's doing, right? And the next bit that usually comes with it is they say, but don't tell him I told you. Are people familiar with that? So you're the manager, you tell them to stop doing that, but don't tell them I've told you, right? And then what happens is the manager, and I'm putting my hands up, I've behaved like this for many years. The manager has a word with John and kind of in a roundabout way says, stop doing that thing. I've heard about that, or we've noticed that, or what happens is this person knows that somebody in this team has talked to you, but they don't know who it is, right? Or they start to guess who it is. So it could be her because she followed me, or she was on that shift, or it could be him because I had that conversation with him. What happens as this goes on is all communication. So, I mean, I couldn't put enough arrows on here, right? Because I was trying to do it quickly. But if I could have, if I was a graphic designer, that would have had hundreds of arrows going in and out, right? So what happens is the leaders in this position where the communication's going through them, the actions are going through them, and I suppose you can see what that does to team cohesion. So if any one of us were those blue members, it's highly unlikely we would trust our colleagues, okay? It's highly unlikely that you would hold each other to account, because why would you? That structure doesn't ask me, it doesn't ask me to hold John to account. That structure tells me this is how I should behave. So before I go on, I'm going to just stop sharing. I can't see you all. And can you just give me some sense of where that's taking you thinking? Ethan.
Sounds very familiar, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I had that exact thing happen just last week, where a team member's come to me about an approach of one of our team facilitators with a customer, and straight away I don't want this documented. I don't want to know who it's come from. And then when I gave the feedback, the person just immediately started guessing and having assumptions on who said what and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
you can see where it works like that straight away.
That's helpful. Thanks, Nathan. Anyone else? Do you think in anywhere in particular?
I saw Christy's hand.
Christy? No? Okay. Anybody else? Anyone really disagree with it and think, I've not seen that or I've not been part of that? Carla?
In the current organisation, I suppose I find that a little bit interesting, because I suppose we are a little bit different, and it's like we hold each other accountable. So it's more around the fact of if you have a problem with someone, you need to go and address it straight away. But in previous organisations, I have seen that happen, and it has been quite a difficult transition and stuff like that. But ultimately, I ended up leaving. So that was my way of doing it. So
okay, Shanti.
I think we have got around that. Initially, when we took over this organization, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of conflicts. There was a lot of talking behind each other's backs and not necessarily addressing the problem. The way we have managed some of that is to actually speak to them and let them know that there are processes, through feedbacks and complaints, and, having a really transparent and open process. It's been a lot of encouragement that we have given people, and to also make them feel validated that, when they have got issues and problems, we are willing to listen and work through them. So I think that has helped to decrease some of that mistrust.
Right, okay. Yeah. So building the trust. Okay, Grace?
I think if people are in that position in the centre, depending on who the personality is, they have an opportunity to adopt an approach which will actually lend itself to team cohesion. I think sometimes the default can be, I'll just, act as manager, whereas actually I think depending on their response, they can set the scene for how the team functions.
Absolutely.
They can be deliberate about how they do that if they're aware of how they can influence and affect it.
Absolutely.
They can contribute to adult behaviour, or they can foster child behaviour, depending on what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So let me show you. So this is just so that you know, I would use this kind of conversation with the team. So I'd be asking them, what's happening in this team? Where is the leadership, or where is, help me understand it, right? So the other place that I think that we want to get to, so we don't want to be in that situation. I always remember actually doing some team development work with a team, and it was a bunch of service coordinators. And one of them said to me when I showed her this, she said, I can tell you now it's exhausting being in the middle of that circle. And then when I started to talk about this, she was kind of like, well, why did nobody tell me that? Is that what I'm supposed to be doing? So the place that I think I'm working with teams to try to get to is this position, right? So I want the leader, manager, facilitator to know what their position is, so to see it and understand the consequences, exactly like what Grace was just saying. So if the leader or manager can get to this position where they may be part of the team, and when I say to the manager, can you tell John to stop doing that? Exactly like what Grace was saying, at that point of a response determines the culture of a team, right? So if I, as the leader, say, I can't talk to John on your behalf, but what I can do is support you to talk to John, right? So your aim in this position is to be supporting the team to talk to each other, the team to be able to hold each other to account. And I completely and utterly agree with Grace that the response from that leader has such a significant impact. If you're in the middle or you feel like you're getting drawn into the middle, this imagery is really helpful for me to think, where am I now? I need to come back out. I need to come back out. So that kind of immediate response to those issues, I think, is critical to team development, right? The other position, so I know that Enable, Emma, you were telling us that you were thinking about self-managing teams, and I know that there's a number of organisations who are looking at that. So if we then go a bit further, a self-managed team, they look like this. So they are a team who are holding each other to account, who are managing themselves. And most of the self-managing organisations I've looked at and I don't know, studied, there is some form of support. So there wouldn't be, they don't all call them managers, some form of a support that is not part of the team. You know, they don't even sit on the edges. They are very clearly outside of the team, but they are there for when the team wants to draw on them. Does that make sense? So the kind of three different positions, I mean, I'm sure there's many more, but the three that I am trying to understand: where's the leader in this picture? What's the impact of their position? Because, you know, if we did a kind of a theoretical exercise, you could come up with a whole load of ways that the position of the leader can relate directly to what Lencioni tells us about the 5 dysfunctions, that we can almost breed a level of mistrust. We can stop any conflict because we just take it on. We'll sort that out. You know, we'll do the conflict. We can prevent people from committing, because they're not committing to each other in this picture. They're committing to you or to the leader. They're not committing to their colleagues. And in terms of results, I don't know how we ever get any sense of clarity if this team isn't supported to communicate and talk to each other. So I suppose I'm showing you that, and I'm putting it up front because over the next couple of weeks, if you're in a team or you're considering working with a team, I want you to do a bit of reflection on where you think you're at. Where's your position? And if you're brave enough, ask team members. So if you showed them this picture, ask them, where would they put you? So do they see you in it? Do they see you kind of drifting in and out of it? Do they see, and you know, if you can do this without judgment, because if your colleagues or your team members are in a place where they're not trusting each other or you, then you need to be careful how you ask this question. But I would like you to get a sense for yourself on where am I in this team? What's my position? And where do team members see me? Because I think there is some real power in your position. Does that make sense? I'm just going to drop this blind, right? Susan, can you just take over because I can't see?
Sure.
Wrong one.
How many of you think
That's better.
that you'll be brave enough to ask the team? Cool, thanks.
What was the question?
I just asked who felt like they might be brave enough to ask the team, like,
right, okay,
in your provocation.
Okay, cool, right, brilliant. So one of the things that I think it's helpful to think about is the notion of servant leadership. So again, there's lots and lots of research out there. There's lots of books out there about servant leadership. And over the next couple of weeks, and this is definitely a kind of self-reflection, self-development journey, I suppose. Over the next couple of weeks, I want to set you a bit of a challenge, which is see what you can find out about servant leadership. So I'll post a couple of things in Slack. I don't want to talk about it here just because I think we could spend a long time talking about it, but I think the pictures or the graphics illustrate servant leadership to me anyway. So I want you to see what you can find out about servant leadership, and whatever you do find out, if you could share it with the rest of us. So there'll be TED Talks, there will be YouTube clips, articles. And I suppose the reason I'm asking you to do it is because I really want you to sit with it and kind of absorb it rather than me tell you this is servant leadership, are you one or not? I think there's something about you going searching and kind of measuring yourself against that. So the position in the team, feedback from the team, and what can you discover about servant leadership and what does that mean for your leadership when you think about yourself? Does that make sense? I'm going to stop saying that because it'll get on everybody's nerves. Okay. So, where are we up to? There we are. Okay, so have I got time? So I'm just going to show a little bit more. The position that I'd start with a team, right, is I want you to be really explicit with a team. So I mentioned it before that, can you see my screen?
Not right now, no.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't think you could. I couldn't see you either. Okay, so if you're going to be working with a team, like I say, I think you need to be really explicit. I'd like to do some intentional work with this team. I'm learning about team development myself, and are the team members up for it? Don't do it secretly, because they're not daft and they'll figure it out that you're doing something to them or that you're behaving differently. So yeah, get their explicit agreement, right? And all of this information, by the way, will go into Slack, so you'll have it. But some of the things you might want to talk to them about in terms of doing this team development work over the next 3 months is this stuff, right? So when you ask them if they are up for doing some team development, this is some of the stuff that you might want to share. So what will it involve? It'll involve some regular time with the team. So if you're in a position today where you'd like to work with that team, but they never ever come together, I would say to you, don't do it. You need to find a way for teams to come together. And it's probably the biggest issue, certainly in human services organizations that I've worked into, the cost of that. So people will say, well, we only bring the staff together, I don't know, every 2 months because it's really expensive and we couldn't afford to do that regularly. I suppose my argument is if a team's dysfunctional, up to 75% of their energy and effort is spent navigating each other, not focused on delivering really good support. So the other thing that I've done in organizations is say, give me 3 months and I'll meet with them 6 times over the 3 months or 4 times over the 3 months. If you've got to limit it, that's okay. It's not ideal, but there is a reality to it. Being able to bring a team together regularly to be able to do this work, I'd say, is really important. Some of the things the team might also need to know about is it is a chance for their own development. So you cannot do any work with a team if individual members aren't willing to reflect and think about themselves. So certainly most of the teams I've worked with would tell you that it was an experience that had a kind of feel of self-development to it, as well as team cohesion. So it's definitely a focus on themselves. So self-discovery is definitely part of it. The other thing that I would say, and I'd say it up front really, is it will be challenging. So, if we go back to what a good team looks like, a good team has healthy debate. There is conflict, right? There is conflict, there is debate, but it should be a safe place, right? So that can cause challenges for people. So if I think about the teams I've worked with, and we'll talk about this later down the line, people are in really different places with their comfort with conflict. So if I think about myself, I was brought up in a family who they certainly like a pint or two, and a Friday night we had debates about everything that was none of our business, everything from, I don't know, how the fire service should run to, what the local MP's done, and we would have a debate and we'd be very comfortable arguing with each other. My partner, his family, don't like a pint, and they are very uncomfortable with conflict. So the notion that we would have a disagreement is really uncomfortable for them. So you can imagine bringing me and him together, my level of comfort with conflict is significantly different to his. And that's exactly the same in a team. It depends on their past experiences, their childhood, all the rest of it. So what teams need to know is it will have a sense of challenge to it. It won't be painful, but it should have a sense of challenge. If it's just a nice time coming together and being nice to each other, we're missing the point really. And like I say, I think teams need time to be a team. One of the other factors that may be worth putting in when you're having this conversation with the team is, and it's just a different way of seeing it, that I think team development work is got these three elements at play all the time. So it is about the results. So it is about what we're doing. So if that's working with people and families, it is about that. If it's delivering an advocacy service, it is about that. You know, there's a reality to what we're doing. So there's that element. There is the team and its relationship with the organization that you're thinking about. And then there's you in it. So there is those three elements. And, you know, it's one way to see it. Like I say, I'm very visual. That they're working with each other all the time. You are holding that all the time. So if I was going into a new team to say, are you up for doing some team development? If I said nothing else, I'd be saying it's going to focus on you as an individual team member with some self-development. It's going to focus on the team, how it operates and its relationship to the organization. And it's going to focus on our work with people and families. Does that make sense? I'm going to stop there, right? Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to just show you one more thing because I don't want you to be, I want you to feel confident about going away and talking to a team. So this is, people have come across this image before, I'm sure of it, the notion of a comfort zone. So for most of us, we spend our lives in our comfort zone. And that's the place where, you know, you're not vulnerable, you're safe, you are competent at the things that you're doing. So you're confident in the things that you're doing. And the evidence would suggest that if you are willing to step out of your comfort zone into what they call a learning zone, that's a place where there is increased anxiety, but small levels of anxiety have a significant impact on your growth and development. So you don't want loads because you just panic, but small levels of anxiety accelerate your growth and development. That's what the evidence would suggest, right? So I often will talk about this with teams and say, you know what, I'm just asking you to put your toes out of your comfort zone. It is a bit of a different way of working for some, not for all teams. You know, some teams are, you know, very robust, very cohesive, but that's one other way of seeing it. You know, that if anybody feels like they're threatened or in panic mode, we're getting it wrong. You know, you want people just to be in a position where there may be some slight discomfort, but that's intentional. You know, it's intentional that you're asking people to work in a way that they maybe haven't done before. And usually the thing that I often hear, it is the thing around conflict that people can struggle with. So we're definitely going to spend quite a bit of time looking at that. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, and I'm going to shut up. So I feel like I'm talking at yous a lot. So where's that taking you thinking? So I've asked you a few things. I've asked you to talk to a team, think about your position, and explore servant leadership. They're the three things I've asked you, isn't it? So tell me what you think. Chris.
Just a really quick reflection when you showed that last slide there about our comfort zone, slight discomfort and then panic. Always find that line between the uncomfortable and the panic zone really, really hard. I don't know whether I'm just uncomfortable or I'm still panicking. It all feels horrible.
Right, okay. Okay. And you know, when you show teams that, it's a really good measure for me that, and I keep that up. So I keep it up somewhere when I'm actually working with teams, we keep that image up. And I suppose it's a good measure for me if teams are saying, I'm not comfortable here, you know, I'm straying into, it's a good measure for me to know I'm either pushing too hard or I haven't really understood what's happening here. And there are times when I've worked with teams, and this sounds not very articulate, but I suppose I see myself as a bit of a mirror. So I remember working with a team that was particularly dysfunctional, and one of the real advantages of facilitating anything is you get to read people's nonverbals fairly quickly. You know, if you're sitting in a room, you can see a group of people, you get to read their nonverbal communication, right? And one of the things, this is just an example, one of the things that I noticed happening every time we met was when that woman spoke, this woman raised her eyes. Does that make sense? So she never said anything verbally, but her nonverbals were so loud, there's no doubt about it that the person who was talking couldn't not see that. So, but it had become a familiar pattern for them to work that way. So I'm sitting there as somebody who's facilitating the work, and I would mirror. So I would say, look, I need to stop. I need to share with you what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that when you speak, you raise your eyes. Now, that isn't a typical way of working. So when I'm talking about a level of discomfort, people can find that challenging, they can find it uncomfortable. But there is no doubt about it, it gets us closer to what's really going on with this team. So I hope I'm not overdoing it. I just don't want to give you the impression doing any kind of team development is a jolly. We all come together, we all sit there, we all get on. It's just not been my experience. My experience would say there's some challenge to it for ourselves, a level of discomfort for ourselves, and teams need to know it can be a bit challenging. You shouldn't be panicking, but it can be a bit challenging. And now I am going.
Emma.
In my experience in the last 3 years of line managing, I avoid confrontation like the plague. I feel really uncomfortable with it, and I just avoid it. And I don't know, but I want to be in a comfortable space to challenge those behaviours, because I see that often, in particular this team and how we're trying to self-manage. Some of them get on really well, and when I split the team up to have separate meetings because they all can't come at the same time, you find that one group handles each other really well and very respectful, but the other one, there's two that roll their arm, raising their eyes, and how do you address that? Because I find that really rude personally as well. I think
thank you for sharing that, Emma. One of the things that we will be looking at is what do you do about that? So what do you do about people's non-verbal communication? Because for me, it's the most powerful. And what I think, and this is definitely the world according to Kate, right? But what I believe is that we've been given really poor tools to help us support people with their non-verbal communication, right? So in organizations, what I've been taught, if I've been a manager, is, people, you have performance management tools. Performance management has never, ever helped me address that. It never has. People can do tasks. What I think I've learned, and it is through the team development work, is I think we as a group will find a language to be able to talk about that with a team, that they'll find the language. So anybody that's worked with me before, Chris will know, we talk about leaking. So we'll say, we do it really intentionally because it's got a bit of a kind of funny edge. It's not about incontinence. It is about your body is leaking, right? So you can do it to your partner, your friends. So when you notice what they're saying and their body is something different, we would say, Grace, you seem to be leaking there a bit. And, people either laugh and we deliberately in a team find ways to talk about their leakage. So when do we see you leak? So one of the classics is somebody walks into an office. Do you know if they're in a good or bad mood? And I can tell you now, right, if you sit in a team, the person who's the least regulated, so they are a leaker, you can see the team look at each other, they all avoid eye contact with that person. So it's almost like their non-verbals is telling you, it's her. When she comes in, she makes a cup of tea so loud that we all know she's never said a word, but we all know she's pissed off or she's not happy. So we find a way in the team to talk about that, which also means you don't have to, it's not conflict as such for you, Emma, who might be struggling with that. It's a different language, which means you have tools to talk about it. I'm going to stop there because we've only got 5 minutes. Go on, Susan.
I was going to say we've got 5 minutes to the end, till the end. And I'd love for us to leave here feeling good and complete for the day. I think I'd like to try something quickly, and that I'm just going to pair people up and just go away. And if you can do maybe a 2-minute reflection each way on what this first day's experience has been like, and then we'll come back and do a quick checkout. So I'm just going to add a couple of rooms here. And Yep, just 2 minutes each way. Try to be disciplined. See you back here in 4 minutes. I'm a bit of a stickler for time, so you can always be assured that we're going to end on time. And like I said, I really appreciate if everybody could be here on time to start as well.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So with Zoom, can we have it like on iPads and stuff like that? I'm just halfway through this. I'm going on holiday. So I won't be taking my laptop, but if I have my iPad and I can have it on my iPad.
Okay. Yep.
You can. Where's other shit?
Here we go. So I am going to invite a 1 or 2 word checkout, just something that you noticed from the person that shared with you in your breakout. And I'll call on people to make sure we get through this quickly. So Chris.
I'm pumped and really excited.
Emma.
I'm really excited about it too, actually. We were just talking to Chris about it. It's exciting.
Shanti.
Positive and exciting.
Carla.
Interesting and exciting.
Kate.
Got through it. Nothing bad happened.
Yet. Grace.
Optimism, enthusiasm.
Matt.
Is that me? Excited, sorry.
Kat.
Yeah, all positive.
Nathan.
Yeah, curious and excited to see how it goes.
Oh, Christy.
Useful. I'm thinking this is going to be really useful as a training. I love tools and frameworks, so yeah, very useful.
Awesome. All right, team, thanks so much. And we'll see you on the Slacks and see you in 2 weeks' time. Kate, did you have a final word or?
No, just I'll post the actions in the Slack channel so we all know what we're supposed to be doing.
And Kate will post the slides and I will
yes.
post the video. See ya.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye. Bye.